Mark's Gospel is the earliest surviving Gospel. Written around 70 A.D. in an unknown place by an anonymous writer, it has a rushed, breathless style due to 40 occurrences of immediately. Here are examples from Mark's first chapter. Immediately coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens opened, and the Spirit like a dove descending upon him. Immediately the Spirit drove him into the wilderness, and immediately after they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon. He took her by the hand, lifting her up, and immediately the fever left her. One might think Mark's Gospel, the earliest, would be the most straightforward account of the historical Jesus. But William Wrede and other scholars show that Mark's account was heavily shaped by theological, not historical concerns. The Messianic Secret motif, unique to Mark, is a literary device that explains why the historical Jesus did not openly proclaim himself to be the Messiah, a reality known to some of Mark's aging readers. The other Gospels dropped the Messianic Secret device since they were for a later audience. Nobody was left to say, "I was young at that time, and Jesus never said he was the Messiah." But maybe the historical Jesus never thought of himself in that way at all. That could be why the historical Jesus did not call himself the Messiah, the problem Mark acknowledges. The Messiah status was granted to Jesus by followers after Jesus' death. The theologically loaded parts of Mark's Gospel are not in Mark's core stories, but in the framework, in the narrative transitions Mark provides. The Gospel writers passed along inherited material, but provided transitions from one story to the next, giving coherence and unity to the overall structure. The inherited stories about Jesus had circulated within Christian communities. The stories were altered to meet unique needs of each community. Stories might have the same formal features. For example, someone has a dreadful illness. Someone asks Jesus to heal. Jesus does it. The crowds are impressed. The specifics get changed. Mark's Gospel strings together pieces, pericopes, that earlier originated in unknown provinces. Mark would have edited what he inherited, just as we know Matthew and Luke made changes. Mark was not the John Mark known to Jesus. The first evangelist does not know Palestinian geography well. Mark chapter 7:31 puts the Decapolis to the west of the Sea of Galilee, but it lies to the east. Sidon is north of Tyre, not south. Mark makes mistakes with Old Scripture, such as when Jesus cites Abiathar when Ahimelech is the correct name. Matthew and Luke do not duplicate such errors. Matthew writes for a community with many Jewish readers mixed with Gentile. Matthew's community would have made sure Mark's easily spotted errors are not passed on. Luke's community, with location likewise unknown, was Gentile. Luke makes no assumption about readers knowing about Jewish customs or geography, but Luke dropped errors out of pride as a careful writer. Each Gospel has a Part 1 and Part 2 in that each has a long passion narrative. That's Part 2. Part 1 covers what happens before the trial or trials, crucifixion and resurrection. Words attributed to Jesus during the trial and on the cross are creations of early Christians, which accounts for discrepancies in the four Gospels. None of his followers were present to hear and pass them on. The differing details complement the unique agendas of the evangelists. What's the source for passion details? Hebrew Scripture. Mark, or his unknown predecessors, recycled phrases from the Old Testament. This created continuity for Mark's biblically literate readers. Mark was heavily reliant on Psalm 22, Isaiah 53, Zechariah, and Daniel 7. Ancient Scripture was reshaped into new. Old prophecies became historicized, in that new stories about Jesus were created out of old text. Mark's source for silence before accusers is Isaiah 53, verse 7. Spitting and slapping come from Isaiah 50. The last words are from Psalm 22. Luke gives different last words taken from different parts of the Old Testament.